Several of college basketball's blue blood programs have started off the football season really strong at 3-0. Is this the making of a new Elite Eight in college football? Welcome to the Jersey Score. I'm Trevor, and now let's take a closer look at what we really think these blue blood programs can do after their hot starts. The one that stands out most to me is Kansas. And out of all these programs that are predominantly really strong in basketball, but not so great on the gridiron, Kansas is the one that stands out most to me. They've had four total championships, and let's see how many. And 16 appearances into the Final Four, but only 5 wins in college football over the course of 3 seasons. So they have just been terrible. And honestly, as a BYU fan, I'm a little bit nervous because this was supposed to be a gimme as BYU entered the Big 12, and now it looks like there's not going to be a single easy game. And what's interesting here about Kansas is they have not just won easy games. I mean, they've gone up against West Virginia in a shootout and another one against Houston. Both Houston was ranked at the beginning of the season, and West Virginia, by all means, is always a very competent team. So they've really, really impressed. And as it stands right now, they actually sit at the top of the Big 12. But they go into a game against another one of our Elite Eight contestants here, which is Duke. Now, Duke hasn't been complete garbage on the football field as Kansas has. They've had their ups and downs, and they've had their stronger seasons, but certainly not known for what they can do in football. And they, being in the ACC, they play, as it stands right now, 3 teams that are currently ranked over the rest of their schedule. So I don't anticipate them, continuing the streak. However, they do have a chance to cause some damage in the ACC, and we know that they will, of course, play UNC, which is another team on our list here. And now UNC has had a less convincing start to the season. They've played really cupcakes, and they were Appalachian State is not a cupcake, but certainly a program coming from not as strong of a conference, and it took them all they had to be able to beat them really twice in that game with that crazy finish. And so UNC, again, in the same situation, they actually have, as it stands now, 4 ranked teams over the course of the rest of the season, including a matchup against Duke here. So I'm not sure what they'll do. They've been probably, out of this group, one of the stronger programs in football over recent history, but I don't think that their odds are real great. Sticking with the ACC, we have Syracuse. And let me tell you, the beginning of their season has really looked more like a March Madness tournament bracket. They've gone up against Louisville, UConn, and Purdue, and actually have a game on Friday against Virginia. So quite a schedule, and some, going up against tougher schedule and up to this point, and have really done well. A lot of it's being credited to Robert Anae, who was up until this season the offensive coordinator at UVA under Bronco Mendenhall. I know him well. He coached at BYU, so really excited to see his success there, and interested to see how the showdown goes on Friday. However, Cuse does have NC State and Clemson left on their schedule, not to mention Pitt and Wake Forest. So again, the ACC has some depth this year, and so they have a strong schedule, but they've shown right now that they're not the pushover that they have been recently. Now let's go with a former ACC school in Maryland. Now, first of all, I know they are not truly a blue blood school. They won their national championship when I was in high school, so I guess I just remember them being probably more of a prominent basketball program than they really are. Having said that, they are really a primarily basketball school, especially being part of that old ACC, and have been terrible on the football field. So in that sense, they still fit in with this group, and certainly, since they do have So now let's go with a former ACC school in Maryland. Now, I know that Maryland's not really a blue blood. They might not even be that next tier like perhaps Syracuse, you could argue, is. However, when I was in high school, that was when they won their national championship. So for me, I just have kind of always had them in my mind as a prominent basketball program. And they certainly are. That's certainly where their focus is, more so than football. So in that sense, they fit. And in all honesty, I just needed an eighth team to round out my Elite Eight. But let's take a look at them nonetheless. They've been off to a good start, winning convincingly, and they even have a win over SMU. So solid so far. But again, being in the Big Ten East Division is certainly going to be a tall task. This week they play at the Big House. Then they're against Michigan State. Obviously, they'll have Ohio State, Penn State later in the season, and even coming from the West Division, they have Wisconsin. So they've got quite the schedule there, and it's very unlikely that they sustain this success throughout the rest of the season. But hopefully, that they're able to pick up some other wins in conference and really build upon what they've done so far. Sticking in the Big Ten, we have the Hoosiers of Indiana, and they are also off to a great start, going up against a fellow Big Ten team, and also a basketball program in Illinois. But they face the same reality that they are going to go up against Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State. I guess the bright spot is that they have Nebraska on their schedule. So again, I don't see them making it to the Big Ten championship, but they might be able to steal one from one of those big guys. Now down to the SEC with Kentucky. And now Kentucky is obviously synonymous with college basketball, and they are a team with the second most number of championships with 8, and certainly always a force to reckon with in basketball. Having said that, they are a team that has been on the rise in football over the last couple years, no matter what John Calipari says. They've certainly had a great start to the season, beating ranked Florida. They're ranked 12 in the Swamp, but Kentucky does, just by nature of being in the SEC, have quite the schedule ahead of them. Fortunately for them, they're in the East, but that does mean they'll be going up against the likes of Georgia, and even Tennessee and Ole Miss are ranked at the moment. So they certainly have a manageable schedule, but it's not going to be easy. So very excited to see if Kentucky continues to win, what they'll be able to do against Georgia at the end of the year. We'll see what happens. So I think out of all these teams in this quote-unquote Elite Eight in college football, Kentucky's really the one that is set up the most to have that chance to really do some damage and possibly even have a shot at the playoffs. But again, to do it, it's going to be really hard going up against a very good defending national champion in Georgia. Now off to the West Coast with future Big Ten member UCLA. Now this program has the most national championships out of all of college basketball with 11. And they'd certainly like to see the success on the football field again. And starting off with as 3-0 is a great start. Their first couple of wins were very convincing, but they did struggle at home and barely got by South Alabama last week. Now, they'd start Pac-12 play this week against Colorado, but Colorado, as we know, is not very good, so there's a very good chance that UCLA goes into leaves this week 4-0, which would be a great start. But after that, they have a gauntlet of Washington, Utah, and then at Oregon in a row. And so that's quite the ringer that they'll go through there. So I think that'll bring them back down to earth, and we'll really see what they're made of. But nonetheless, they are 3-0, and that's why we play the games. So let's not write them off yet and see what they can do. So what do you think of this college football Elite Eight through the first 3 weeks? Which of these programs do you think really has the chance to turn the narrative from being a basketball school to a basketball and football? And will any of these schools get any major upsets or cause some noise this season? Let me know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time.